So, you are wondering, what are the steps to writing something quickly and efficiently in as little time as possible? Maybe you've collected all your tools and you're ready behind your computer, but you have no idea where to start. Well, I'm Mr. Henrikus, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do this in 3 simple steps. And stay tuned to the end of the video because I have a bonus tip I give my own students when they're stuck when they need to write something. Let's get to it. So let's do the first question first. Why should you structure your work? Well, it's something English teachers like myself really like. We like to read things that are structured. And honestly, my own students, if you have a better structured work, your mark will always be higher, because then you show us that you're thinking clearly and that you have a good logic in your work. Structuring your work before you have to start writing also makes it easier to write when you actually have to sit down and write longer pieces of text. Now, before we move on, if you find these videos useful or you want me to make a video on something else, consider leaving a thumbs up or maybe asking a question in the comment section, because then I know what kind of video you want to see. The first step is knowing what your goal is, and that's very important. Maybe your teacher gave you a particular assignment or something to write on. In that case, make sure that you really understand what it is and what you need to do before you start planning and writing. Otherwise, you might get stuck very quickly. Now, let's say that I give my students an assignment of writing an essay on the influence of exposure on second language acquisition. This means that I want them to analyze how language exposure influences second language acquisition. This means that people who are exposed to English more often will probably have a higher language proficiency than those who are not exposed to English that often. Now, this is an extensive topic and we need to narrow it down before we start writing. Now, the first thing I always tell my students to do is create a word web with some things that come to mind when you think about your topic. And this is called activating pre-existing knowledge. When you've done that, you already know what you need to do your research on, because you already know what you know and what you don't know. And this means that when you're doing your research, it's going to be very efficient because you have particular things you can look for on the internet. So the next step is narrowing down your topic, because you've done your word web, you know what you know and kind of what you don't know. And the next step is making sure that you can narrow down your topic so that you can be very efficient when you're doing your research. Since we've already created a word web, you can use this word web as a good starting point. Now, it doesn't mean that if you find something else on the internet, you shouldn't add anything to your word web. Just make sure that you stay focused on what you're looking for and that you don't elaborate on things that are irrelevant, because we teachers, we don't like that. Now, the better your research is at this stage, the better your writing will be, because then you can spend a lot of time on the writing part and you don't need to do extra research when you're actually in a writing flow. Now, also pay attention to the fact that I haven't written anything down yet, and I even don't have Microsoft Word open on my computer. And the reason I don't have this is that the more and the better I do my planning and preparation stage, the better it will be at writing. Because imagine that I've written down 1,000 words and then I find out something that I also wanted to add. Then I need to change several parts of my work, and that's just a waste of time. That's not very efficient, because remember, I promised you that you will learn how to write efficiently. So make sure that you plan stuff and that you maybe make some notes, but don't write extensive pieces of work yet, because we're not ready to do so. This is important. Make sure that you spend a lot of time on the planning stage before you move on to writing. Now, the third step is planning your work, and you do this using an outline. Now, an outline can be whatever you want it to be. It can be very extensive and very detailed, which is what I like, but it can also be very simple and just a few quick notes. If you want to know more about outlines, or you maybe want a tutorial on how to make one, have a look at my Writing Essentials outline video, which is somewhere over here. And in that video, I'll go through this in a bit more detail. There are several reasons why an outline is very useful and why teachers always tell students plan your writing. And the main reason is that you get something that is structured and focused. It also means that you don't have irrelevant and unnecessary things, and you automatically get some sort of paragraph structure. You also make sure that when you're actually ready to start writing, you can do this in one go, and that's very useful because then you can write a lot in very little time. Now, as you can see in my outline, my paragraphs have something called levels. I'm not going to go into detail what this is in this video, but have a look at my paragraph structure video if you want to know more about how to build good paragraphs. Let's go back to my word web. I have some things I want to talk about and I need to put them somewhere. I have 1,000 words for this assignment, so what I could do is write 3 paragraphs of 250 words each, and then I'll use 125 words for my introduction and conclusion. Now the next step is to order what I'm going to put where. And as you can see, I've decided on 3 topics. I'm going to talk about the influence of language exposure on first language acquisition, the influence on language exposure on second language acquisition, and finally, I'll add that exposure alone will not achieve the language learning you want. And I'll put that in my 3rd paragraph. Now, before we move on to my bonus tip, consider giving a thumbs up if you found this video useful until now. Now, my bonus tip, the one that I give my own students when they get stuck, is that if you want to write a lot but you don't know where to start, make sure that you set achievable goals. This means that sometimes you only need to answer the question briefly. And then you have at least something on paper and your brain will automatically link things together. Another thing that I also tell them to do is if you don't know where to start or maybe you don't know what to add, simply ask yourself questions why. So if you've written down something or the answer to the question and it's only one sentence, make sure that you ask yourself why for every sentence you write down. Because by doing this, you get extra information. And at some point you'll have a paragraph. And then the only thing you need to do is make sure that it's structured and it's decluttered. And that's it when it comes to structuring your work. So what did we do in this video? We activated pre-existing knowledge and I showed you that activating pre-existing knowledge is useful because then you know what you know and don't know. Then I showed you that you can narrow down your topic using a word web. And finally, I explained that you can use an outline to structure your work even further because then you get better results. And I gave you my bonus tip. Do you remember what the bonus tip is? Now, if you found this useful, consider leaving a thumbs up or maybe something in the comment section. Don't forget, you can always ask me or give me some ideas on videos you want to know more about. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell because then you'll be the first one to know when the next Writing Essentials video will come out. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.